The most important meal of the day, second breakfast.
Hi, everybody. Welcome back to another Second Breakfast podcast. I'm Andy Ruff alongside Phil Duvall. Say hi, Phil.
Hello, everybody.
I'm really excited, Phil. This is going to be a good week. I'm pumped. I'm happy to be doing
I am
this.
too. Well, first of all, Halloween is on the way.
Halloween.
Okay, so we had
Halloween.
trunk. Have I told you about trunk or treat?
You have told me. I'm not sure if
Okay.
you've told Second Breakfast
Second
Nation.
Breakfast Nation. If you don't know what this is, there will be organizations, churches, and schools, for instance, because I guess people are feeling less and less safe about neighborhoods, which I have a problem with in general.
Indeed.
I say roll the dice personally.
Right.
But I mean, if you're gonna roll the dice with where you send your kid to school, you might as well roll your dice with who gives them candy, right? But
Right.
the point
You can always
is,
get another kid. You can always have another kid.
no comment. It's not like the world is. It's not like the world is like wishing there were more children. but that's another. But that's a thing. That's a horse of another color. Okay.
Indeed.
So organizations, churches, for instance, my church doesn't do this, but churches, for instance, will line up their cars in a parking lot and then decorate and festoon the back of the trunks and the back of their minivans and whatnot with Halloween decorations. Little children will get dressed up in their Halloween outfits and come around and trick or treat at the trunks. And the people are vouched for because they're people of the community, whether it be the school or church. And there are specific rules about what kind of things they can hand out, obviously. And you know you're on fairly safe ground. And that's the idea. Hence, trunk or treat. Now, aside from the fact that, to me, I mean, you're not even going door to door. Door to door is important because it takes time to get from one door to the next door, creates a sense of anticipation and build up from the last place, which might have been a letdown or might have been super exciting. It gives chance for, like, you see more people. It's like, and let's be honest, a little bit of exercise, you know, for all the candy you're about to eat.
Right.
Literally trunk, 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 trunk. I mean, it's kind of ridiculous. On top of that, what did we teach our children about taking candy from strangers in their cars? Doesn't this just completely counteract that? It's like, just go from car to car and take candy from people you've never met.
You can
But don't
take
worry,
candy from
they're
strangers.
dressed up.
You can take candy from strangers in cars, but only if there are 10 cars in a row.
And only if they're dressed up as Batman and you're a princess. That's the only way it's okay.
Yeah.
It bothers
What
me,
could go
but-
wrong there?
But I'm watching Halloween. This is the first Halloween. My daughter's 2.5, almost 3. This is the first Halloween where she actually is conceiving of what it is, like where she's gets it to some degree. And you still have to, like, whisper in her ear, say trick or treat. Next year, she's going to be, like, on that, like, no question, right?
Sure.
But this year, she's still kind of, like, figuring out. But she gets that she gets to dress up. She gets that she gets candy when she says these things. And I'm now seeing what I haven't seen since I was a child. This is the greatest thing. This and Christmas.
Sure.
And this is a great beginning to the Christmas season. It begins with getting to dress up as whatever you want. And then just get candy.
Yeah.
And your parents are totally cool with it. And you just get a ton of it. And it's yours. And then you walk around and everyone's dressed up as stuff you love. Look, there's Mario. There's a Ninja Turtle. By the way, I saw both Mario and a Ninja Turtle the other night at a trunk or treat thing, it could have been us.
That's true.
Right? There's a princess. There's Tinkerbell. You're giving me Kit Kats and Snickers? Like, what is going on? Please try to live in that world for a second. Imagine how amazing that is. It begins there. Then there's a holiday, which is kind of lame for kids, called Thanksgiving, but at least the whole point is you eat a lot and watch TV.
That's right.
And it culminates with waking up and then walking out into your living room in your pajamas, seeing a big lit up tree and all sorts of things that just are yours now, that yesterday didn't even exist.
That's right.
There's
spontaneously came into being.
The end of October to the end of December is the most magical time in the world for children.
It's true.
Anyways,
as an adult, I have to register one slight complaint in this.
Please.
Yes. And that is what I have heard usually referred to as Christmas creep.
Okay.
Which is like there are stores around that right now have Christmas decorations out. And
And
it's
while
like,
I agree with you that that's problematic, terrible even,
Yeah.
classless, yes.
mm-hmm,
Tacky, sure.
sure.
Gauche, unquestionably. When I've reoriented myself to understand that the Halloween is the beginning of the season, of the
Sure.
Christmas season,
Mm-hmm.
and the end of the Christmas season is, of course, New Year's, but really, like, it culminates in
Right.
Christmas.
Right.
It culminates in Christmas. All of a sudden, I'm like, while I don't approve of it, I understand it. It's not okay, but it makes sense. That's all I'm saying.
And where we diverge is it doesn't actually make sense to me. And I get what you're saying, but it's like, why you got to be in a hurry, world?
Oh no, I'm with you. I'm with you. Totally with you.
Right.
Totally with
Right.
you. But it's like you can hear Christmas. You can hear Christmas whispering in Halloween's ear.
I guess if I believe,
I'm on my way.
I
I'm on
believe, if I believe that that's why Christmas Creep happened, I would be on board with that because I love the Christmas
Oh,
season.
come on. Of course it isn't.
But it's hang on.
I'm just straight up.
I own Joe's General Store, and Mike's General Store put up their Christmas decorations 2 days earlier, so they're going to get all the shopping. And I think that's why it happened, and that is terrible.
No, I'm a revisionist, if anything. I'm literally looking at the world and deciding how it might as well be. But I am big on symbols and symbolism. Sometimes I think they're more real than anything else. And so, and I believe in Jesus. And so Jesus is a big deal for me. And so the idea of his birth being the culmination of everything is pretty awesome. And so I'll build anything around that nonsense because I think it's awesome.
Sure.
Anyways,
That's fair.
but Halloween, we are going to talk about something scary today.
It's true.
And actually ask the question, is it scary? Is it Halloween? But we'll get into that in a little bit. Andy, first, what do we do?
First, folks, at the beginning of the week, and it's not really the beginning of the week because we've talked a lot about Halloween and it was awesome. But in the first of the two podcasts, we tell you what we've watched, what the movies that Phil and I have watched over the past week, and then we do a little thing we call One Big Thing, and that's just something sort of that's been in our heads over the past week.
Just hanging out.
Yeah, right. Just hanging out. And that's my story. I'm sticking to it. And now we will list for you the movies we saw.
Film.
Would you like to go? Would you like me to go?
I'll go.
Hit me.
Started out promising this week with 2 movies in a row because I got sick and then just petered out.
Sure.
But I knocked out 4 movies this week.
Nice.
Did not get myself to a theater.
Sure.
I saw Beauty and the Beast again,
Awesome.
the Disney one, and I have to say something. It really is perfect. And by the way, and actually, I'll say more about that with my one big thing in a little bit. But Beauty and the Beast, amazing,
Sure.
amazing, Andy. And I know this, like, I don't know what it looked like I don't remember what it looked like when I had it on video cassette. I don't know like about the DVD, but I will say I watched it on Blu-ray on my widescreen on my plasma. I like plasma personally. We can talk about that sometime maybe.
Sure.
It's so beautiful. The
Yes.
artistry. It is. Pardon me. It is a movie. It is a glorious movie to behold.
Yes. Agreed.
Jerry Orbach in that movie, by the way, as he's Lumiere.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, his work is Lumiere. Anyway, the next movie we watched, we talked about it last week, last Friday, is The Woman in Black.
Mm-hmm.
I decided it was time for my child to see A Bug's Life.
Parenthood.
A very underrated Pixar movie.
I can believe that. It's been
It's really in many ways a forgotten Pixar movie.
Sure. I agree with that. That's right.
And it is essentially Seven Samurai retold in a bug world. Or Magnificent Seven, if you like.
Oh, nice. Yeah.
But that is essentially the plot.
What's interesting
So
is when it came out, I had not seen either Seven Samurai
Oh yeah, no way. Neither did I.
or Magnificent Seven, because that was back when Pixar movies were coming out, and we weren't kids, but we were teenagers and fairly young teenagers, if I remember correctly.
Well, no, Bugs Life came out in '98, so we were in college. But I mean,
sure, okay, well, still,
yeah.
Not that you're ever too old for Pixar, because come on.
No, but I mean, we didn't know what it would be. I mean, I remember, for instance, seeing Monsters Inc. Which came out next, I believe, and then Finding Nemo, and I was like 20, 21, and I saw them and was sort of like in awe, like, yes. Oh my God, and then saw The Incredibles, and I was like, okay, now officially Pixar is something I have to see a lot of.
Yeah.
But at this point, it was just another cartoon from Disney. Am I going to watch it? From the people who brought me Toy Story, will I see this movie? That's different.
Yeah.
And finally, to wrap it all up, I watched a classic, Andy.
I can't wait.
The Preston Sturges comedy, The Lady Eve, starring Barbara Stanwyck and Henry Fonda.
Awesome.
Now, I had only seen one other Preston Sturges movie before this, Sullivan's Travels, and I have gone on record as saying, at least when I saw it in college, I didn't like it because it wasn't funny and it was a comedy, and therefore I didn't like it. And when I'm told something is amazing over and over again, and my teacher teaches me that this is a good movie and I'll never forget him saying that Capra was junk food and Sturgis was a fine meal. Right. So I was not ready to like Preston Sturges.
Sure.
The Lady Eve is one of the smartest, most perfectly written things I have ever seen.
Love it.
It is came out in 1941. It's 72 years old, and this movie, I mean, you could remake it today as a period piece, but the language is to this day sparkling. And it's got symbolism. Remember when things had symbolism and didn't mind having symbolism?
I do.
I mean, her name is Eve. The way she first meets the guy, she drops an apple on his head. I don't. And he
don't get it.
And he has a fascination with rare snakes.
I don't.
But none of this stuff is the main part of the movie. These are all just sort of underlying character features that they do. It's fantastic.
Sounds like it might be over my head, actually. You know.
Well, you are a heathen, so that's
true.
possible. Folks,
I'm not sure if this will be Phil's last podcast because apparently he's dying.
I apologize. I mean, do you want to stop and start let me lie down for a little bit and re-record, or are we okay with this? I feel bad for the viewing public or the listening public, but this is what's happening in my body right now.
You know what? I am now only thinking of dirty jokes off of the phrase happening in your body. So no, we're good. I'm good.
All right, good.
But kudos on The Lady Eve. I have, as you would imagine, I have heard nothing but good things, but I have never seen it, and now I think I might have to, and soon.
Well, I was particularly. What happened was I was watching that movie Golden Boy, which I've decided to watch every single movie with William Holden in it. Mm-hmm. And Stanwyck was in it, and I was like, God, Stanwyck is great in this. Stanwyck is great in. Barbara Stanwyck is great in Double Indemnity. I'm going to see what else she's in. So I went on you can go on in DirecTV, you can search, I search an actor's name, and then it'll show everything that's coming up in the next month on TV. And so I just taped a couple of Barbara Stanwyck flicks.
Awesome.
And watched it, and it really is a phenomenal movie.
Folks, would you like to know how to become a total movie freak like Phil and like myself? Just do everything he just said.
Yeah.
You know? It'll happen. It'll happen for you. And sooner than you'd think. So,
and I would also say, by the way, you're right, on top of that, if you really want to become a movie freak, find someone to partner with you in your freakiness.
That's right.
Because it will, when I first got into Dylan, who I've taught, obviously anyone who's listened to the show more than once knows that I'm obsessed with Bob Dylan. A friend of mine it was his favorite musician of all time, a friend of mine took me to a concert. And then my two closest friends in high school were huge Dylan freaks. And so we just fed off each other.
Sure.
And so much of my education came from the passion between the three of us. So that's easy. So if you want to be a movie geek, find another movie geek, and then you're well on your way.
Nice.
Okay, those are my 4 movies. Andy, go ahead.
Because nothing is better for you than someone who will enable you.
I agree with that, actually.
So last week, folks, was a terrible week for me. It was a wonderful week, amazing week, one of the best weeks of my life. But I only watched one movie, so it was terrible. This week, come back in a major way. Certainly not to my days of like 14 movies in a week, because that's insane and no one wants that. I saw 6 movies this week. First, both because it was chronologically the first movie I saw, and also because it was the only time I actually made it to a theater this week. Carrie, the remake of Carrie, with Chloe Grace Moretz. It was terrible.
Oh, I'm sorry.
It was terrible. Strangely, the best performance in the movie with and this is a movie with Judy Greer and Chloe Grace Moretz and Julianne Moore. The best performance in the movie was the kind of goofy and ridiculously pretty boy who ends up taking Carrie to the prom. He is.
Everybody who talks about this movie talks about how pretty this guy is.
Because it's like weird and smooth, and like the T-1000 has not finished forming the new person. Like that's. It's not just that he's pretty; it's how he's pretty. It's like they've CGI'd his skin, basically. But I actually looked him up, and he's coming. He's doing some things. The new Twilight and Hunger Games. This series Divergent that is coming out soon that I might actually see, because the lead female is Shailene Woodley, and she is amazing. He is, I believe, the lead guy. He's the lead male actor. And he is it's a charming performance. It's like a naturalistic and charming performance. Everything else is terrible. I finished up my recent rerun through the Fast and the Furious series. I watched Fast and Furious, which is the 4th movie, and Fast 5, which is, wait for it, the 5th movie in the series.
What?
Fast 6 or Furious 6.
Aptly named?
Indeed. The 6th one, which I would have watched as well, is not yet out on Blu-ray. But don't worry, Phil, it's on pre-order. I watched Jurassic Park because a friend of mine had it on Blu-ray. He's like, let's just watch it. And we watched like the first hour, and I was like, well, I'm not going to just watch the first hour. So when I went home, I was like, come on, I'm finishing that.
Jurassic Park.
And then the last movie, this is my 5th movie. I'm saving the 6th because it leads right into my one big thing. The last movie I watched late last night, Your Sister's Sister, with Mark Duplass. Okay. And Emily Blunt and Rosemary DeWitt.
Oh, wow.
It's basically, I can't, like, I feel like there's one other person with a speaking part in this movie. Have you seen this movie?
No, but you said Emily Blunt.
Yes. I think there is a 4th person with a speaking part in this movie, and it is Mike Birbiglia, and he has like one line. Or one exchange with Mark Duplass right at the beginning, and then it's just the 3 of them. And it's, in terms of plot, it is a trifle, but these 3 actors are so charming and lovely, and they are just great. And I don't have a big thing to say about it, but I have a little thing to say about it, which I'll get to in a second. And the last movie I saw, the Joss Whedon Joss Whedon interpretation of Much Ado About Nothing.
Did you not mention the fact that you saw Woman in Black?
I didn't see Woman in Black.
Oh.
We
just talked about it without you having seen it?
Phil, it's a blessing and a curse. Okay. I remember things.
I believe that about you.
2 weeks ago we talked about or recently we talked about the 2 Dawns of the Dead, and I only saw one of them.
Well, that's true, but that's different because I assume you've seen the earlier Dawn of the Dead a squillion and a half times.
That's right. 3.5 squillion, actually.
Well, you got to watch your Joss Whedon Much Ado About Nothing. It must have been very exciting for you.
It was extremely exciting. It was extremely exciting. It was my second time watching it. I had seen it. I saw it in the theaters. Okay. Shall we move on to one big thing?
I would love that.
Okay. So, very briefly, my little thing, Mark Duplass. You talked about him recently, and I just want to echo your sentiment. He's part of this thing called mumblecore, which is a movement in film, and it's kind of tired and overwrought.
Is it?
But what I'll tell you is this.
Go ahead.
It's heavily bound up in being naturalistic, hyper-realistic. And
Yep.
he is one of the most engaging, realistic performers in Hollywood right now. He specializes in bringing normalcy to situations that are totally ridiculous. Safety Not Guaranteed is a ridiculous film that is grounded by other performances as well, but his is the most ridiculous role, and it never feels ridiculous, or at least it never feels ridiculous in a bad way. Your Sister takes a while to get as ridiculous as it gets, but I bought it, and I buy it, and it's because of the job that he does, and DeWitt and Blunt as well. But the common denominator here is Mark Duplass. I just think he's wonderfully talented, and not to mention he couldn't be funnier on The League if he tried.
Sure.
My one big thing, and I sense you might push back at least a little bit on this.
I'm so ready to push back.
I know you are. My one big thing is Shakespeare, Phil. My one big thing is Shakespeare.
Say more about that.
You know, Phil, I'm gonna. So, as I just said, I watched Joss Whedon's Much Ado About Nothing. And it is, in many ways, the perfect Shakespeare adaptation. And what I mean by that is, it is not... I mean, if you want to talk about objective quality, and I know that you never do, but if you want to talk about objective quality, it is not the equal of, for example, Kenneth Branagh's Much Ado About Nothing.
Sure.
It is not the equal of his Hamlet, or McKellen's Richard III, or Olivier's Macbeth, or Hamlet, or Kurosawa's Throne of Blood, which is his version of Macbeth.
Yeah.
But we have an epidemic in this country, and this is an epidemic of Shakespeare-itis. People are either terrified of Shakespeare or they think they hate him. And I submit to you that nobody hates Shakespeare. You were just taught it wrong. You were taught it too early. You were taught it in a way that makes it boring. And if nothing else, Joss Whedon's Much Ado About Nothing is anything but boring. It is, even if you don't understand what they are saying, let me tell you a secret. I know Shakespeare real well, and I don't catch all the words. And when I catch all the words, I don't catch all the meanings. That is not important. You need to get the broad strokes. And I don't say that because you won't pick up subtlety. I say that because if you pick up the broad strokes of Shakespeare, you will just sort of internalize the subtlety, because that's how well written it is. And it is so well written, you can get it even if you don't get it. And Much Ado About Nothing is, and the image of people with Shakespeare-itis is, people standing very stiffly and talking like this and declaiming with their hands. And Whedon's Much Ado About Nothing is like, it comes from the guts. It is exciting, and it moves, and it is sexy, and it's just exciting. And so when I say it is the perfect Shakespeare adaptation, what I mean by that it is a gateway. It's your gateway drug.
So my question, I guess, would be, what part of this did you think I was going to push back on?
Well, we're on record as me loving Shakespeare more than you do.
Oh, listen. I am someone who was intimidated by Shakespeare and never had anyone to walk me through it and help me with it. And it was sort of that thing that separated the real theater people from me. I got into theater. Well, no, I got into theater through movies.
I wanted
to make movies. Right. Sure. I got into Shakespeare through movies. I wanted to make movies and be in movies, but that wasn't available to me. So I did so I acted in anything I could that was near me, which was theater. So I got into theater, but then there were theater people, and theater people loved Shakespeare and talked about it like Haven't you already? You mean you didn't know? You haven't read Troilus and Cressida? One of his. You haven't delved? And I'm like,
Right.
I don't know. Like, I guess
sorry.
not.
I'm sorry.
No.
Before you could continue this, Phil, I need to prove your bona fides. Can you recite Act 3, Scene 2 of Timon of Athens? Because if not, I'm gonna need to find another co-host.
Of what? Is that a Shakespeare play?
Maybe Pericles? Pericles?
Upon St. Crispin's Day.
You know what? Folks, that's Henry V, and I love it anyway.
Yeah, well, I was introduced... I was really... My first real experience of Shakespeare was probably watching Kenneth Branagh's Henry V with my dad. And you know, my point is... It was very much this sort of, you need to know about this to really know. And I never really had anyone that guided me. In fact, I would say, looking at back at my acting career, I never really had a mentor.
Sure.
And if you're listening to this and were any part of my my growth as an actor, or whatever you want to call it, if you were one of my old teachers and you're hearing me say that, you should feel bad. Because I was really good and I never really got going, and I'm going to at least partially blame you because I never had an actual mentor. Meanwhile, in my career here as a priest, I have had phenomenal mentors. And even from the beginning, when I realized this is what I wanted to do, there were people who mentored me and guided me, which all the more tells me that this is what I was supposed to do, right? That's the cosmos or whatever, working me. But anyways, my point is, Shakespeare was something that I was taught was beyond me, actually. Yep. And so I don't dislike Shakespeare at all. I mean, I think that's ridiculous. I mean, Hamlet, I remember reading Hamlet in high school, senior year, and literally spending a month just on Hamlet in my English class.
Sure.
And I was like, well, this is amazing. This is as complete as a piece of work, literature, art, theater could possibly be.
Yes.
So I love Shakespeare when I experience Shakespeare in a way that moves me. But I'm not a Shakespeare fan by definition.
Sure.
I know Hamlet, Henry V, Romeo and Juliet, Macbeth.
Taming of the Shrew?
No. I think that might be... Oh, Much Ado About Nothing.
Sure.
And I think that might be it.
Julius Caesar?
Nope.
Huh.
No. I know that someone says, friends, Romans, countrymen, lend me your ears, and then that's...
And Brutus is an honorable man. So...
I didn't even know that, but I believe you.
It's true. It might be my favorite line in that play, because it's just, the subtext and sarcasm. Like... Julius Caesar was the greatest guy ever, and Brutus was terrible, but Brutus is an honorable man. And by the end, people are like, ah! And they want to tear him apart like a Costco rotisserie chicken. Anyway, the only thing that I disagree with what you just said, or take issue with about what you just said, and I take violent issue and strenuously disagree, is that you did not include me and my utter hatred for those teachers that did not mentor you through Shakespeare when you said that you blamed them. Teachers of Phil, I blame you too.
Yeah. Really.
Yeah.
Look, I'm not saying that would have been the difference maker, but I remember hanging out with some people who were friends of mine. One of them was friends of mine from high school, and we were hanging out with her and then a friend of hers from her college, and they both went to Northwestern, and they both started talking about their mentors in college.
Sure.
And I was like, "You're what?" I'm not kidding. I was like, I wasn't like being sarcastic. I was like, "What do you mean? What do you mean?" Then it turned out that I didn't know what the word mentor was. So once I learned that, but I was like, what is that? And they were explaining to me what it looked like to have a relation. And maybe I just didn't deserve one. I mean, that's fine too. But I don't know. I feel like a hungry actor who shows promise in an educational setting should be mentored. And maybe I should have gone to a conservatory. I just had ruled that out. Mm-hmm. I don't know. Mm-hmm. Maybe I would have been better off in a conservatory or something like that. I don't know. My life, yeah. I look forward to mentoring people because I actually feel like mentoring is not something that people realize is super important these days.
Totally. I agree with that, and I likewise look forward to that. When I am important enough for anyone to care what I have to say, says the guy with the podcast. I agree with that. Actually, I feel kind of bad because some professors came to me and said, we'd like to mentor Phil. And I was like, no, don't. So
He's not worth your time.
Like, I would tell you to go ahead, but it's just basically going to be lost on him. Yeah.
That would be wasting everybody's time.
Before we move on to your one big thing, can I do a little personal announcement? Because yes, a couple weeks ago, and this upcoming week,
Ooh.
friends of mine are getting married, and I bring them up now, A, because I love them, but B, because they are both past contributors to this podcast through viewer mail. They have emailed us at secondbreakfastpodcast@gmail.com, all one word.
What was that email again?
Phil, that was secondbreakfastpodcast@gmail.com.
Okay.
They have emailed us our some questions that we have used on the air. So, Anthony, John, congratulations to both of you. Anthony a couple weeks ago, and John this upcoming week.
Are they marrying each other?
No. That would be
okay.
weird because one already took place. So that'd be like a long wedding.
Andy, gay marriage isn't weird anymore, dude. You need to get with it.
Oh my god. Oh my god. You're the worst person
Andy,
I know.
Andy,
Yeah.
I don't want to hear how some of your best friends are gay right now. You've overstepped your bounds.
Flames.
And we're all uncomfortable.
Flames on the side,
We're all
breathing, heaving.
A little uncomfortable.
I'll make you a little uncomfortable. So, Anthony.
Was that another? Never mind. Okay.
Anthony, John. Anthony, I hope you had a wonderful wedding. John, I hope you have a wonderful wedding. And finish up the celebrating quickly so that you can get back to writing us mailbag questions. Because that's what you need to be doing with your life. And that's my story. And Phil, over to you. One big thing.
One big thing. Howard Ashman.
Oh.
Speaking of gay people, because I think he was gayer than I am straight. And that's pretty gay. Howard Ashman was the lyricist for all the songs to Beauty and the Beast, all the songs to Little Mermaid, and to some of the songs for Aladdin. But he died before Aladdin went into full production, and he died of AIDS in 1988. He died, actually, I believe, before Beauty and the Beast was even nominated for Academy Awards.
Okay.
But when people talk about the height of the regeneration of Disney, what it turns out they were talking about is actually the vision of Howard Ashman. Because when you I want to find out, this guy, they need to make a movie about him. But just go on his Wikipedia page, and I recognize that Wikipedia is not the end-all, be-all. I trust me. Boy, do I know that. But his Wikipedia page was, to me, I cried while reading it.
Wow.
And he was someone who got picked up. I don't remember how he got involved with Disney, but he got picked up by Disney and started working with them. He worked with them on Oliver and Company, but then Little Mermaid really was, he was someone who helped make casting choices. He was a person who was saying, we don't need to cast famous people, we need to cast people who have singing and acting in their backgrounds, like musical theater. Mm-hmm. And that's why when you watch Little Mermaid and Beauty and the Beast, they are basically Broadway musicals in cartoon form.
Yeah.
Like, watching Beauty and the Beast recently and Little Mermaid, both I've watched recently, they are basically Broadway musicals. They really are. But his music and this stuff, his contribution to the characters and to the way they worked, the way that music tells the story of Belle at the beginning of Beauty and the Beast, or Gaston, for instance. It's not just that Gaston is a brute or a terrible person. It is the degree to which he is a brute and a terrible person, and the way that is told by the way his character is sung and described, and the way that the movie is done, and that really is him, or at least hugely. And you can tell because he writes a couple of songs for Aladdin, but then Aladdin goes in a different direction, and then finally you have Lion King, and Lion King, while on an animation level and a spectacle level is spectacular, the music doesn't do it. What you have is, and this isn't actually, well, it is a knock, but it's okay. But think about it this way. Lion King has Tim Rice, the lyricist who wrote the lyrics, picked up the lyrics from Aladdin and basically carried on with Alan Menken in finishing up that. But then he's working with Elton John for the music of Lion King. And Lion King, when you watch Lion King, is essentially a movie with pop songs interspersed.
Yeah.
Really well done pop songs, by the way.
Yeah.
Really well done pop songs. Because Elton John is a pop genius, no question.
Sure.
But what Menken and Ashman were doing together, and you realize Ashman's really power here, is they were creating stories and intertwining music that told the story and created characters. Music that created characters.
I love it.
And I realized while reading about him and watching Beauty and the Beast that had he lived on, the so-called Disney Renaissance would also have lived on. And they need to find more people who are doing what this guy did.
Yeah.
I want to read this from his... on the night of the Academy Awards, Ashman told Menken that they needed to have an important talk when they got back to New York, when he revealed to Menken that he was HIV positive. He had been diagnosed in 1988. During the making of Beauty and the Beast, the Disney animators were told to go work with Ashman and Menken in New York, but nobody told them why they were being flown out there. A lot of the animators thought it was because he was a big shot, but then it became clear to them that he was seriously ill. He grew weaker, but he remained productive and continued to write songs. On March 10th, 1991, the Disney animators had their first screening for Beauty and the Beast, and it was an enormous success. Afterwards, they visited Howard in the hospital. He was 80 pounds, lost all of his sight, and could barely speak. His mother showed the animators that he was wearing a Beauty and the Beast sweatshirt. The animators told him that the film was incredibly well received by the press and described to him in detail how it had gone. He nodded appreciatively to the news. As everyone said their goodbyes, producer Don Hahn leaned over to Howard and said, "Beauty and the Beast is going to be a great success. Who'd have thought it?" To which Ashman replied with, "I would have." 4 days later, on March 14th, Ashman died. Ridiculous. Ridiculous.
That's
Ridiculous. Beauty and the Beast is dedicated to him. Beauty and the Beast is dedicated to him, to our friend Howard, who gave a mermaid her voice and a beast his soul. We will be forever grateful. I don't have, like, I know I'm getting all crazy about this, and I just read a bunch of Wikipedia stuff, but, like, here's the deal. I think I've gone on record as how I love Disney movies, and it's amazing to me what this guy contributed to my childhood without me knowing it. And as soon as America gets cooler with the gays, they're gonna make a movie about this guy's life, and it's gonna be awesome. That's all I'm gonna say about that. It's gonna be awesome.
That's fantastic.
So, anyways, Howard Ashman. That's my one big thing.
Well done. Well done. I appreciate that. That's wonderful. So let's move on to the main topic of our convo today.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know how I feel about the word convo. I love it and I hate it at the same time.
I'm over it already. I'm moving fast, like through the water like a shark, Andy.
I see what you did there. Please
Okay,
continue. Talk about what we're talking about.
Okay, so here's the deal. I remember when I was a kid. I'd say probably like 91, 92, and I was watching this thing on TV, and every year around Halloween, I don't know if they still do it, because now I only watch television that I have already recorded and approved of.
Sure.
But back in the olden days, when men were men and women liked them that way, you used to just turn on the television and see what happened. You know what I mean?
I do. Or if you wanted to plan, you'd look through the TV Guide booklet.
Oh, God, I loved the TV Guide.
I know, right?
Who decided the star system for the movies? They decided this is like this movie has
totally
2.5 stars.
Yes.
Says who? Like
the TV
who's
Guide
the
machine.
judge of that, like, and I didn't buy the TV Guide, like the world famous magazine TV Guide. Our newspaper came with its own like TV Guide. Like a weekly.
Oh, sure. Guide. Sure.
So anywho,
I seriously didn't trust it. That was like the knockoff brand.
Yeah, but I still used it, and
Sure.
up until the time they got rid of it, I used the crossword. I did the crossword every. Anyways, so my point is that there was this thing. Every Halloween, they would do something like the 10 scariest movies of all time.
Sure.
And I remember this list. And on this list, of course, number 1 and 2 were always like The Exorcist and The Shining.
Sure.
And then there would be other movies on this list. Even though it had come out fairly recently at the time, I remember Silence of the Lambs being on the list.
Sure.
And the funny thing about Silence of the Lambs, for me, is the Silence of the Lambs is not a horror movie by definition.
Mm-hmm.
But if someone wanted to make the argument that it's a horror movie, we could have a conversation.
It's true.
And it's definitely terrifying.
Right. Yes.
And it is not just terrifying, but it's unlike suspense, which is its desire is to suspend you and get you like like.
I just got that.
Right, you're welcome. There is something about Silence of the Lambs that is meant to horrify you.
Yes.
Like it actually tries to do things that a horror movie does.
Right. Yes.
But another movie that was on this list consistently
Sure.
is a little film by the name of Jaws.
Jaws.
And that's what I want to talk about today.
Phil?
Halloween fast approaching, again, with the speed of a shark in the water.
Don't go to the well too much, man. Don't
Okay.
keep going to that well.
It's an unending well. And Jaws is scary, but it's not a horror movie.
I concur.
But it's got horrific images,
Yes.
and its desire is to terrify you.
Yes.
So, why is Jaws not a horror movie? And subsection 1.1, why is Silence of the Lambs not a horror movie? Now, we would call The Exorcist a horror movie.
Oh, yes.
And we would call The Shining a horror movie.
Yes.
I think.
We
We would call The Dawn of the Dead a horror movie.
Yes.
We would call Night of the Living Dead a horror movie.
Are you going
see
to
where
list
I'm going with
every horror movie?
this? Would you call Psycho a horror movie? Because that's on those lists a lot too, and it's considered a scary movie.
I agree with you, and it is a scary movie. You have totally blindsided me with this question. I am ill prepared. I have to say, if there's a third movie that immediately springs to mind with Jaws and with Silence of the Lambs is like terrifying, but not necessarily a horror movie, I would go with Psycho. I also think it is much. I will go with yes. I will go with yes. It's a horror movie. I will also go with, even if it's not, it's much closer than Silence of the Lambs or Jaws.
Okay, so back to question the first.
Question the first.
Is Jaws a horror movie? Andy, go.
No.
Okay.
That's
That's
it,
all
folks.
for this week on... Yeah, like we could ever talk that briefly about anything.
About anything. About talking briefly. We couldn't, no.
I like to talk as long as possible about talking briefly.
Second Breakers Nation.
I have a couple of things I'd like to say
he's
about
right.
that right now.
There's a moment in Sports Night where they call Peter Krause they call him conversationally anal retentive. He's like, am I conversationally anal retentive? And they're like, really? I like to answer that in 4 parts, with the third part first and the second part fourth. He's like,
Nice.
okay, all right.
Okay.
Okay, so let me start out by saying this is our favorite kind of argument, Second Breakfast Nation, because it is totally meaningless and utterly semantic. I mean,
That is
utterly semantic.
wheelhouse. Wheelhouse.
It's right. That's right. Fat part of the bat. We got the good part of the bat on the ball here. So, I mean, what is a... Obviously, the two main genres, going back to, ready for it, the beginning of theater, comedy and drama, right?
Yeah.
Those are pretty easily defined. One is to make you laugh. The other one is to put you through a catharsis of some kind.
Okay.
Right?
Okay.
Any other genre is in some sense a subset of those two genres.
Okay.
So it depends on how you define it. And the way, as we have discussed on this podcast, since time in memoriam, or since like last year when we started, is you define a genre through its tropes, okay? And these movies, I mean, it sounds silly, and this isn't quite what I mean, but like the dumb teenagers is a horror movie trope. And that doesn't mean that a horror movie has to have dumb teenagers, and doesn't mean if a movie has dumb teenagers, then it's automatically a horror movie. But that is something that when you are watching a horror movie, you're like, okay, this has put my brain in the right frame of mind, and I know what I'm expecting, and blah blah blah. And it feels like a horror movie at its base. It's you just got to feel it. Yeah. And Jaws doesn't feel like a horror movie, and I think the clearest way that I can say it doesn't feel like a horror movie is I would argue that the two greatest scenes in this movie take place around a table. People sitting at a table.
Sure. I know. Yes. Okay.
And in some
what does
sense,
that have to do with it not being a horror movie?
Because would you call it a comedy if the two best scenes in a comedy made you cry? Maybe.
I mean, I think the thing is, part of the reason both of those scenes are good is because of what surrounds them. I mean,
I agree. No, I agree.
Him with his son is because of his fear of what could happen to his son.
That's right.
And the scene, and the other scene, which I know you're talking about, the USS Indianapolis scene, that whole thing is interrupted.
Yes,
you know,
yes,
by the shark, and so there's that imminent danger.
Yes,
you know,
you're right.
So, but I mean, I almost feel like also those two scenes are almost the greatest scenes after having watched it a bunch of times. But the thing that made it a huge crowd pleaser, or the thing that it was everything. You can't just pick one thing, but it's the fear of going into the water. Right. Like that movie, we need to not forget the effect of that movie was not that everyone knew about the USS Indianapolis.
That's right. You're right.
The fear of that movie is that people were afraid to go in the water after that, and that today the way we think about sharks in general is still formed greatly by our fear of Jaws.
Peter Benchley was like, I can't believe I did this to sharks.
Sorry, sharks.
Yes.
I'm not sorry. They still can kill people. That's a thing.
It's right. That's right. So I guess you're absolutely right. And I guess my only response to that, because you are completely right, is to back up and remind everyone. And first off, if you disagree with me, you're wrong. And if you haven't seen Jaws, get your life together.
Oh my gosh!
It
really?
It in some sense.
People who haven't seen Jaws?
I mean, you got to think like babies, you know.
Okay. Well, in that case, there's time.
Right. If you're not a baby, there's no time. You're spent. You're done.
Judgment Day has arrived.
So
and you have been found wanting.
He chose poorly. So I think I need to back up, and I need to say that it, in some sense, defies genre because it is one of the greatest movies ever made. And because it is one of the greatest movies ever made, like most of those movies, it doesn't fit just into one genre. So, what I mean by that, going back to my definition, is it has the tropes of a lot of genres. There are scenes in that movie that are hilarious. Sure. And there are scenes in that movie that make you cry. And there are scenes in that movie that make you scream. It sounds like a cliche, but it's got everything, you know? Yeah. I laughed, I cried, I ate popcorn. It is popcorn.
Okay, I think I have an answer.
I would love to hear it.
Well, two things. One is the video store test, which children these days would not understand. But it's very simple, Andy. In the good old days, when you walked into and I'm talking pre-Blockbuster, by the way, because really, Blockbuster is not a video store. When you walked into your local video store, if you were going to look for Jaws, which section would you go to?
I guess maybe I would go to the horror section. Would I?
I don't know. That's what I'm asking.
I don't know.
I have decided that I would go to the adventure section.
You had more sections in your video store than I did.
Oh, what sections were you thinking of?
I did like comedy, drama, horror.
There was always an action-adventure section.
Action, maybe. But, oh, okay. Yeah, you're right. Action-adventure. I was thinking just action. No, that's right. I loved growing up. In fact, when I went and they stopped creating the action/adventure category, it's like, little part of me died.
A little bit.
Yeah.
I think adventure movies might be one of my favorite genres that no one ever talks about.
Sure, right? Totally.
It is.
Totes.
Speaking of which, can I digress for literally 30 seconds?
I don't think so, but give it a shot.
I'm not a regular watcher, but I was watching The Big Bang Theory the other day. My wife is a regular watcher, so I watch it sometimes.
Sure.
And the main character, Sheldon, has this girlfriend, and it's whatever, who cares? I don't really want to get into the story because it's a waste of time. But she's never seen Raiders of the Lost Ark, so he gets her to watch it.
Okay.
And when it's over, she's like, okay. And he's like, no. This is amazing. And she's like, no, I mean, it's pretty good. It's fun. And he's like, no, this is amazing. And she goes, well, it's problematic. And he goes, how is it problematic? It's a perfect movie. It's sealed, airtight. And she goes, no, it's problematic, but I don't want to ruin it for you. And he's like, you couldn't possibly ruin Raiders of the Lost Ark for me. It's literally impossible, so enjoy. Good luck. Give me what you got. Give me anything. And she says, well, the main character, and he's like, Indiana Jones. She's like, sure. He's completely irrelevant to the outcome of the plot.
Right.
And he doesn't actually accomplish anything. That if he had never shown up, the Nazis would have found the Ark eventually and opened it up and gotten their face melted off. In fact, he literally does not accomplish anything towards the outcome of the movie. And the main character Sheldon's like sits there and he goes like trying to, and then he just like his mouth drops open. And I've come on, I grew up on that movie. That was one of my first movies. Andy, she's completely right. That's all. Digression over. Okay, we can talk about that more later, but seriously, doesn't mean I don't love Raiders. Does mean that maybe from the very early on, I think George Lucas may have been wearing no clothes much earlier than we realized.
Well said.
Okay.
Well said.
Okay.
I basically have that movie memorized. Very briefly. I basically have that movie memorized. I think the answer might lie, and this is, you are, and should I say Amy Farrah Fowler, is 99% right. But I think the answer, or the response to that, might lie in where the Ark would have been opened, because I read somewhere that, like, who knows, it might have been opened right in front of Hitler and the war would have ended. And I don't think that's the case. I don't think that was the plan of the Nazis.
Well, if that's the case, then actually that would have been even better.
I agree with you.
That's how it would have ended if Tarantino had written it.
So let's get back to Jaws.
Okay, back to Jaws. I'm sorry. I apologize. Digression over. It just made me think of that. Okay, action adventures, my point, is where I would look for Jaws. But here is my little theory that I've cooked up as to why Jaws is not a horror movie.
I cannot wait.
In two parts. Okay?
Part the first,
which I'll go for the long, convoluted one and part the first. Okay. I have become quite a connoisseur of horror movies as of late. Andy, maybe you didn't know this.
Ooh, say more.
Not an enjoyer of them, by the way. Not a fan. Just one who has canoosed many of them, and so I'm a connoisseur. I have endured many. I mean, like, that's like saying someone who runs a marathon is a marathon enjoyer.
I am telling you, what you're saying right now literally could not make me happier. I could not be happier with what you're saying.
So I have watched many a horror film and a horror film and not horror, and I am now kind of understanding, as you would say, the tropes of the genre. And I think one of the things that I'm realizing is one of the most effective things a horror movie does is make you feel as if the people who are in this thing, there's no way out, perhaps.
Yeah.
And the reality of Jaws is that all you have to do is not go swimming.
Yeah, it's true.
Like, or move to Idaho, really. I mean, it's not...
Oh my god, they're on an island. Yeah, that's connected to the mainland. Like,
right. Like, you drive off of the island on a bridge, and then you go away from there.
If you're feeling saucy, live dangerously and take the ferry. Like,
on one hand, it creates an existential crisis where it creates a situation where we are scared of ever going into the water.
Yes.
On the other hand, it doesn't create a situation that you cannot escape. And the great fear we have for the protagonist in a horror movie is, will they survive this thing
Yes.
that has consumed them that is horrific.
And that is
There
certainly...
is something that is horrific in Jaws.
And yes, and
it-
you are worried
there
for
comes
people's
a point-
survival. Yes.
And there comes a point where you worry about their survival,
Yes.
but that's because they go on a mission.
Yes. Yep.
It's not because the shark is coming after them personally.
Right.
It's not a Sharknado, for instance.
That is totally waiting for me in my mailbox right now.
You're kidding, right?
Why would I kid about a movie named Sharknado? Phil, do you remember a couple months ago when it aired? Literally everyone in the world was talking about it. The United Nations took a break and had like a general assembly about Sharknado.
I'm never going to see that movie, Andy Roth. I'm just not going to see it. But
Is this something that surprises you, that I will see a movie that you will not see? I mean, if it is, we're going to take a pause from the podcast and just talk, you and me.
We need to have a little talk about our relationship. I'm going to watch like a Barbara Stanwyck movie or like a William Holden movie and Robert Wagner, and you can watch... So
you're going to win. You've won weeks before, and you will win more.
And this week I'll win again. It's just something I do. Like I put my pants on one leg at a time, just like you. The difference is once my pants are on, I watch better movies.
I don't watch Sharknado.
Right. So anyways,
you just said the same thing.
So I think that's a horror movie. I think it does follow a lot of the horror movie tropes in terms of the desire to scare you, the way it uses its scares, but it creates, and it's almost like you could say, well, it's a situation they can't escape, but not like Scream, where literally any minute someone could come around the corner and stab you. Like it's different.
Right. That's right.
You know. So that's my main argument against it, and my second argument goes like this: it's just too much fun. It's fun. It's too much fun. Horror movies aren't fun.
I'm going to disagree with you on that.
No. You may have fun being horrified or scared.
Yes.
But horror movies, like, aren't fun. Do you disagree with me? Is that...
Yes. You're saying contradictory things.
Nope. They only sound that way to the untrained ear. But if you had elf ears, okay, like Legolas, like your elf ears would discern the difference in what I am saying.
Right. There is nothing that makes something fun other than the perception by the person who is undergoing that thing that thing is fun. Right? Nothing is intrinsically fun, except for maybe the movie Raiders of the Lost Ark.
I feel like what you just said.
No, I'll stand by that. Fun is in the eye of the beholder, and I behold fun things when I watch horror movies. Not every horror movie.
I have an idea.
I would love for you to tell me your idea.
Wife, what genre of film is Jaws? Suspense.
Yeah.
She rolls her eyes and then said suspense.
No, I'm with that. That works. That totally works.
And that goes back to a conversation we had before, which people should listen to, about the difference between suspense and horror in one of the previous podcasts. And I think that's one of those things where it does create a fine line. Jaws is meant to scare you, but it's tricky. I don't know. So, anyways,
I agree.
suspense,
I want to.
I'd say you said what you weren't sure. She said suspense. I said action adventure, but really adventure.
Sure.
You could call it a
yes,
drama.
of the two, if you're going to separate the two, it's clearly adventure.
We talk about how it's funny, but you're not going to find it in the comedy section.
Agreed.
If you found it in the drama, or the action adventure, or the horror, or suspense, which, again, really classy videos had that section.
Yeah, you're right.
Interesting.
I want to talk specifically about one trope of the horror genre. Horror genre. And how this is not enough of a specifically horror trope to make Jaws a horror movie. And that is the pre-credits. I don't know if it's pre-credits, but or the pre-title death.
Opening.
Right.
Yes.
There is an opening death that does not connect to the rest of the movie. And that is Scream has that. Like a bunch of horror movies have that.
Yeah.
But that's not a horror trope. That is... I don't want to use the term blockbuster trope, but like a movie that tries to be crowd pleasing, if you will,
Okay.
often has that. Maybe it's connected to the rest of the movie, maybe it isn't. But here's like a whiz bang pow moment.
Well, it's this is what this movie's about. Like,
I mean, that's right.
This is what this movie's about. It's an opening sequence. Opening sequences are incredibly fun.
Yes.
If they're done right, and
I mean,
helpful.
I
if
mean,
they're done right.
Action movies have them. All of the Mission Impossible movies have a pre-title sequence or a cold open, to put it in the parlance of Saturday Night Live, that is not related to the rest of the movie. Oh, maybe one or two are related to the rest of the movie, but they're still like, it's not the beginning of the story. It's, here's this thing that happened, and then we're gonna move, and we'll show you how it related, and blah blah blah.
Okay, lightning round. Yes. Okay, so lightning round. What section of you? I'm going to name the movie, and you're going to tell me what section of the video store to find.
Can't wait. Wait. Like Ben Stein and when Ben Stein. I shall do my best.
Silence of the Lambs.
Suspense.
Psycho.
Suspense.
Birds.
Drama.
The Birds?
Here's the deal. I think it's as close to horror as Hitchcock ever made. But I think today, where do I file that today? It's either in the... I'll be honest. I don't think it holds up. It doesn't hold up like Psycho.
It has moments, but I know what
it does. It does. It does have moments.
Yeah. Very few things hold up like Psycho, actually.
I agreed. Except for that really, really weird speech by the doctor at the end.
Well, okay, it's a disaster, but that's fine. It's just useless. It's
Freudian and cigars and crazy. Nah.
The Shining.
Horror.
A Clockwork Orange.
Drama. Creepy and weird drama, but drama.
Well, this is why.
No. I'm not disputing its inclusion in this game.
Dark City.
Sci-fi.
You threw me for a loop on that one, buddy. Didn't see that coming. Oh, well, in that case, Alien.
Horror. Or sci-fi. I mean, either way. Things could be more than one thing, my friend. I will say this.
I know.
Here's actually...
Again, you go into the video store, where would you look first? Where's the first place you would look?
For Alien?
I
confess I would probably look for it first in horror. I would look for it first in horror. But, and this is interesting, much like action adventure, I remember video stores that had sci-fi horror as one thing.
You're right. You're right.
Know?
And that makes sense because a lot of sci-fi is horrific.
It's true.
Although that would be awkward for Gravity.
That's true. Here's my actual answer for the genre where I would look for it for Dark City. Movies I wish I had seen before I saw The Matrix. I mean, you know, I'm just going to throw that out.
It did come out before The Matrix.
I know, but I didn't see it. I saw it only because a friend of mine at a restaurant I was working at got me in a Secret Santa, and he knew I hadn't seen the movie, so he bought me the DVD.
I've got another one for you.
Hit me.
Bram Stoker's Dracula.
Fascinating. I mean, I think it has to go in horror. I don't think
it does.
I don't think you can name.
I
don't think you can have the word Dracula in a title and have it not be Dracula Dead and Loving It, I guess. But
we need to watch that again.
Okay.
I have it on Laserdisc.
That doesn't do me any good, and I'm not sure it does you any good.
I'm not going to answer that question right now. Are you ready? Are you ready for the final question?
Phil, I shall.
The final film,
please.
Monster Squad.
Oh. Awesome kids movies that are still enjoyable as an adult.
No. Not a section of the video store.
Sadly, it should be. When we open our video store, that's totally going to be. It's going to be that and the Goonies, and that's pretty much it.
I think we should open a theater that also has a video store attached to it and a lounge.
Idea. I think that's a fantastic idea. So Okay. All right, let me break this down. Sections of the video store where I wouldn't mind seeing Monster Squad. Okay? Kids.
Okay.
Comedy.
Okay.
Adventure.
Okay.
Horror. I
What an
think
amazing film. What an amazing
it's
film.
so good. It's so good.
Even if it's not so good, which it is, but even if it isn't,
Right?
what an amazing film. Like, even if it's not good, it's amazing that you just said you could put this movie in horror or children's, and I agree with you.
Yeah.
That's insanity.
It is insanity. That's
I just blew your mind.
And look, folks, this movie is not The Goonies, okay? The Goonies is a better movie, but here's the deal with the Monster Squad that is precisely the same as The Goonies. It shows you things that are goofy. It does. But it takes it seriously, and not in a dour, overly serious way. It just treats it with respect. And you know what kids really want? Because they never get it? They want to be treated with respect. And
they don't know that that's what they want. They can't articulate it, but
right.
it's true.
That's right. That's very well said. But
because children are less articulate than Rodney Dangerfield.
Only just.
Only slightly.
But so you've got these kids who love horror movies in Monster Squad, and Dracula comes to their town and like raises the creature from the Black Lagoon, Wolfman, Frankenstein's monster, and that sounds like the setup for a comedy, and it is joyous and it is funny, but it is not a comedy. It is there is actual danger. These kids are in actual danger.
Oh yeah,
Dracula is not screwing
because
around.
of monsters.
Yes. I mean, yes, and yet it's goofy. All right, I get it, but I mean, you're watching a movie named. Yes, it scared me. You're watching a movie named Monster Squad. Like, if you're not up for a little Dracula.
By the way, Andy meant that literally. Right now, you should be watching a movie called Monster Squad.
That's true. It is on the short list of movies that if you are not currently watching it, you have no conception of how.
I love that it manages to somehow get World War II symbolism into Monster Squad. Is there anything this movie isn't? I mean, that's the thing. It's just.
It is sorely lacking in the romantic comedy arena.
Although that one guy does have the hots for that one girl,
It's
but you're
true.
right.
I mean, that's
You're
true.
right.
You're right.
Okay. Okay. Well, I think that's all. I think we've answered the question. Jaws is not a horror movie,
Right.
But it is terrifying.
Oh.
And if you but see, to me, it's a summer movie because of the setting. So my final question would be: is it an appropriate movie? And don't just say, "Of course it is," because it's good to watch anytime.
Right.
Is it an appropriate movie to watch on Halloween? I'm gonna say no. Again, if someone were to watch it, I wouldn't be like, tisk, tisk, tisk. Because any time you watch Jaws.
No, of course. And I want to be very clear that I don't want to like fall back on, even though I think that, and I know you think that too, I don't want to fall back on that as the main sort of thrust of my answer.
Yep.
I'm still going to say yes, because enough of it is scary that it is a terrifying movie, but it's also more palatable. So if you're with people who are just like, I am not going to watch Halloween, I'm not going to watch Nightmare on Elm Street.
Okay.
Most people will still say yes to Jaws.
Oh yeah, my wife has seen Jaws, but she's not going to watch The Exorcist with me.
There you go. You know what I mean? Does that make sense? That's
okay. Yes. Yeah. So I mean, what you're saying is, if on Halloween you're hanging out with a bunch of loser sissies, then yeah, go for it.
Like your wife.
I think that's a good point. Okay. Yeah. Hey, watch it, you. Okay.
Quiet, you.
Well, I think we've, look, folks, we're going to have a special Halloween edition of Second Breakfast, so tune in next time. We're going to answer a couple of scary mailbag questions.
Mm-hmm.
And we are going to have a conversation about The Exorcist, which is considered by some to be the scariest movie of all time.
You have seen it.
I have, but functionally haven't.
Sure, okay,
in the sense
sure.
that saw it when I was 14, which was now 20 years ago.
Phil, we are so old.
And oh gosh, I know we really are. And so what I want to do is like really see it again. Really
Sure,
actually know what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
So yeah.
I like it. I like where your head's at. And folks,
Okay.
tune in and we'll like where your heads are at. You know?
And if you tune in, I'm going to give you a special bonus. I'm going to give you an update on what's been going on with Lily Sobieski in her career and where Lily Sobieski is these days. Tune in for that.
Now I was planning on kind of skipping, but now I can't because I want to know.
Lily Sobieski.
Okay, well, so folks, you got that to look forward to.
Yep.
Who knows? Maybe they will have cloned her the way they cloned Helen Hunt to make her. You know, and then
You got to be careful when you make a copy of a copy. You've seen Multiplicity.
That's right. And The Sixth Day or whatever that Arnold Schwarzenegger thing was. No.
Okay.
That's fair. I am ashamed. I am ashamed. Folks, this will bring us to the end of another podcast. We have had a lot of fun bringing it to you, and I mean, come on, you've had a lot of fun too. Even if you don't like horror movies, because that's what we do. That's the Second Breakfast
Yep.
magic.
We make things that aren't fun.
That's right.
Next up, taxes.
Nice. So that'll do it for today. We are Second Breakfast. I'm Andy Roth, and that is Phil Duvall. We'll see you again soon. Bye-bye.
Adios.
The most important meal of the day, second breakfast.